Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm seeking a leave of absence for meetings on the 12th of July and the 9th of August, please.
Is someone happy to move that?
I'll just jump in with the reason. Yep. So the reason passed on for the 9th of August were for personal and family commitments. But the reason, if you could remind us, Councillor Moriarty, for the 12th of July?
The same.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Not a leave of absence, but I have a plane I wish to catch this afternoon. So if the meeting goes long, I'll be leaving during the meeting. Sorry. Thank you. It's not a threat, Mayor. It's just wishing to live with my partner. So.
We don't want to go back. The sole participant in the special meeting. This morning we have a run to lead us through the monthly financial report for May 2023. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the monthly finance report is presented for council adoption for the period ending 31st of May 2023. The report provides progress made against the budget and is in accordance with Section 204 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Now, councillors, whilst you're looking at the finance report for wider context and a wider perspective, obviously, councillors, I would like to draw your attention on item 6.24 of the special budget meeting agenda, which is where you saw the latest forecast figures. In a nutshell, if you're looking at that report and this report, that would be the right way of assessing the performance. We still expect, councillors, that there will be an increase to revenue of $2.1 million a reduction in expenses by $800,000, which basically means councillors, the surplus position will be $3.1 million, which is what councillors would have adopted at the original budget. But I'll let Helen take you through all the details. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, CFO, through the Chair, and good morning again, councillors. As Budget Review 3 was not adopted until the 6th of June, Council's financial performance, as at the end of May, is still measured against Budget Review 2, which was adopted in April. Council's operating surplus for the period ended the 31st of May is $9.4 million against a budgeted surplus of $12.9 million. This represents an unfavourable year-to-date variance against budget of $3.5 million. This net variance has resulted from a reduction in revenue at the end of May of $9.8 million, partially offset by a reduction in expenses of $6.3 million. The reduction in revenue is due to contract works and the advance payment of next year's financial assistance grant not being received until the end of June. It is expected that 100% of next year's grant will be received before the end of June. As at this morning, I can report that Council has still not received the payment of the grant into its bank account. The reduction in expenses relates to contract works, which is consistent with the reduced revenue, and also relates to underspends against budget for materials and services costs across a number of Council's functional areas at the end of May. The total capital budget at Budget Review 2 stands at $63.6 million. At the end of May, Council has incurred actual expenditure of $29.4 million, with an additional $33.4 million in expenditure being committed. The delivery of the capital program this financial year has been constrained by supply chain issues and rain events, and as part of the Budget Review 3 process adopted on the 6th of June, project costs of $10.4 million were reforecast into next financial year. Council's cash balance at the end of May is sound at just over $111 million. Combined overdue property-related debtors for rates and water at the end of May stand at $11.3 million. This total has increased by just over $500,000 since April due to the issue of the second half water levy that was due at the end of May. Reminder notices for the second half rates notices were issued on the 5th of June, and first reminder notices for water were issued on the 21st of June. As at today, combined arrears for rates and water has reduced to approximately $7 million, reflecting the recovery of outstanding amounts during June. Other miscellaneous or sundry debtors, which includes invoicing for other council activities such as airports, sale yards, refuse and contract works, are $2.4 million at the end of May. Almost 70% of the total miscellaneous debtors, or $1.6 million, relates to current invoices raised in May that are not yet overdue. All of Council's 5 business activities, except for sale yards, have recorded operating surpluses at the end of May. The continued recovery in passenger numbers is reflected in the strong year-to-date result for the airport business. The favourable operating result for the waste business activity has been maintained in May due to the additional revenue from disposal activities. While the water business has recorded a surplus at the end of May, this result has been impacted by the reduction in revenue from rates and charges due to lower levels of usage billed as part of the second half levy issued in April. Council's total borrowings at the end of May stand at $66.7 million, and on the 19th of June, additional borrowings of $10 million, as forecast in the budget, were drawn down to fund capital projects. Procurement data for the month of May shows that the amount spent on local suppliers at 44% is slightly lower than the 48% allocated to suppliers outside the region. However, from a year-to-date perspective, the ratio of local spend to outside spend is on par. That concludes the report, and a recommendation is made that Council adopts the monthly finance report for May. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Daniels.
Thank you. Helen, I've got a couple of questions. The first one is around, I'm going to say 2 or 3 meetings ago, I asked a question about electronic rate notices, and you did indicate that you thought they'd be available for the first part of this next financial year, or first rate notice. Are you still on track for that?
Just through the Chair, look, we are still working towards that time frame, but you know, we are going through the process. We have to involve our ICT team as well. So I'll bring a further update to the next meeting in relation to that.
Thank
the
you.
progress. Thank you.
I would expect that there'd be a big communication campaign out
That's
to our
right, we
ratepayers
still have to go
as well.
through that as well.
Thank you. And getting more into the detail of, so attachment 2 for commercial and the key operating revenue expenditures variance report. It just mentioned that the first one is unfavourable variance in property services rental income due to disposal of staff housing, a lower than expected occupancy rates in community housing. The question I had, and this might be to Carrie, about the lower than expected occupancy rates in the community housing, was that to do with houses that may not be able to be rented because they have to receive some sort of renovation, or the demand isn't there? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I'd have to take that question on notice to provide some detail in relation to exactly why that has impacted the bottom line. But generally speaking, yes, it's in relation to the ability to rent those dwellings, given there's some maintenance and other works that need to be undertaken.
Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you very much. Thank you for an excellent detailed report with lots of information in. I'd just like to reiterate my request at the 24th or 25th of May meeting about the opportunity of having a dashboard at the front of our monthly reports, so that at a glance we can just see what the key indicators that how we're tracking. Anyway, just putting it there. I know that there was probably something to be followed up, but I just wanted to reiterate. But thank you very much again, and hopefully that money comes in, Helen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Any other questions, councillors? All right. As Helen said, the recommendation is there that Central Highlands Regional Council adopts that monthly financial report. And as Arun said, in kind of the empirical nature now being sort of kind of superseded by what you saw this morning, read the sort of end of financial years with this one in context. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Brimmelcombe, second to Councillor Daniels. See, Councillor Brimmelcombe very keen to get this moving. It's been moved and seconded. Councillors, all in favour? Against? Thank you, Councillor. That's carried. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you, Arun. Councillors, the next report relates to the State Valuation Service. So, Arun, I guess in respect of that, I'll hand over to you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the Department of Resources has written to the CEO seeking Council's view on the upcoming local government land revaluation program. The purpose of this report is to seek Councillors' views and confirm Council's response to the Valuer General by the 13th of July 2023. I'll now invite Manager of Finance, Helen Kirby, to take us to Council the report in detail. Thanks.
Thank you, CFO, and through the Chair. Section 72, subsection 1A of the Land Valuation Act 2010 requires the Valuer General to make an annual valuation of all land in a local government area. The Valuer General, through the State Valuation Service provides statutory land valuations for all rateable properties, and the Land Valuation Act states that one of the statutory purposes for these valuations is for the making and levying of rates. As Council has flexibility in determining the rate in the dollar to be applied when setting the annual budget, rates can still increase or decrease even though land values remain the same. The rate in the dollar adopted by Council each financial year is multiplied by the statutory valuation to determine the rates to be levied on each parcel of land. Valuations are usually issued annually. However, when an annual valuation is not undertaken for a local government area, the Land Valuation Act requires that the preceding valuation continues to be used. In a letter dated the 6th of June, the Valuer General sought Council's view in relation to the revaluation of the Central Highlands local government area as part of the 2024 program. This communication forms part of the consultation process that is undertaken prior to the Valuer General deciding on the inclusion of a particular local government area in the annual program. The State Valuation Service also consider that market movement is a strong indicator for a revaluation, and will undertake a market survey report of the area that reviews sales of land and the probable impact of those sales on the value of land since the last annual valuation. Consideration is also given to the timing of when the last valuation occurred. Council was not included in the 2023 program based on a market survey report which indicated a lack of movement across all land use sectors in the region. Council was last included in a revaluation program in 2021, which ended a 3-year period where the same valuations had been in use since the 2018 revaluation program. The movement over this 3-year period was significant for the rural land sector and resulted in valuations being up to 100% higher than those issued in 2018. The current valuations issued as part of the 2021 revaluation program have now been used for the purpose of making and levying rates in 2021-22, 2022-23, and will also be used for 2023-24. Local government areas are generally revalued at least every 4 years. If council is not included in the 2024 revaluation program, it will have to be included in the 25 program. However, this will be a 4-year period where the same valuations have remained in effect for rating purposes. Supporting the inclusion of the Central Highlands region in the 2024 revaluation program is recommended, as it may limit the impact from significant valuation movements occurring, similar to when the 2021 valuations were issued following a 3-year period of no annual revaluations. A significant increase in land valuations across some sectors can present challenges for council in the development of the annual budget and long-term financial plan forecasts. When assessing the impact on rating decisions, council will need to consider different approaches such as reducing the rate in the dollar, capping or valuation averaging to transition the increase in the rates levied. When revaluations are performed annually or more regularly, incremental increases in land valuations are manageable as part of the rating process and reduce the impact for ratepayers. A recommendation is made that council advises the Valuer General by the 13th of July that it supports the revaluation of the Central Highlands Regional Council local government area as part of the 2024 revaluation program. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. And I think, councillors, I did allude to that fact that that has been borne out. I think from the State Valuation Services, their estimation and I guess monitoring of sales, not only in the Central Highlands but certainly within the Central Queensland region that have some influence, certainly have tended to be quite static over that period of time. But I think we indicated that we did want to participate previously and they concluded that they didn't need to. I guess this is, I don't know what the right word is here, but unilaterally they make the decision in the end anyhow, despite what our intention or advice is. So this is just seeking your advice. So councillors, I don't know whether you have a view as to whether you support this. So I guess, to be quite frank, in terms of, I think the onus of budgeting and I suspect probably the detail in site valuation now and the intrinsic nature of some of the valuations, that it is very important to try and, I guess, have the most accurate information we possibly can have. And I guess if we're going to argue about some things, at least we should have the most current and relevant information. So I would certainly be encouraging we do it. I think we pay for it anyhow, don't we? At the end of the day. So, councillors, over to you. Yep. Well, if people are happy to do that, is someone happy to move that we do that? Moved by Councillor Cruz, second Councillor Brimblecombe, that the Central Highland Regional Council advises the Valuer General that supports a reval of the Central Highlands Region local government area as part of that program. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Councillors, carried. Councillors, 11.1.3 is the amendment of the 23-24 fees and charges register. I guess the same doubles team is handling this, so Arun, if you could lead us off. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of the report is for Council to consider proposed amendments to the fees and charges for next year. Councillors will note that Council actually adopted the 2023-24 fees and charges on the 8th of March this year. So this will be, councillors, the first amendment for the fees and charges for next financial year. I'll now invite Manager of Finance, Helen Kirby, to take Council through the amendments in detail. Thanks, Helen.
Thank you, CFO. Through the Chair. Fees adopted as part of the original fees and charges register for a financial year can be amended by resolution at any time. New fees, discontinued fees, fee adjustments and wording amendments are being proposed to the adopted 2023-24 register for the following services or facilities: major venues and community facilities, Bridgman Park, health, waste and other miscellaneous services and facilities such as right to information fees, flood search request fees, Springsure multi-purpose clubhouse fees. I will now provide a brief overview of the proposed changes relating to each of these areas. Firstly, the major venues and community facility charges. A replacement fee structure for major venues and community facility charges is proposed to replace the current hall charges section of the original 2023-24 fees and charges register. Over the past 10 months, halls and facilities have undergone a full audit and review of current procedures to develop a new strategy has been undertaken for the management of entertainment venues across the region. The restructure of the hall charges section is designed to create uniformity to the fees and charges associated with venues and facility bookings. Currently, there are multiple structures in use to calculate fees for hiring the different facilities in the region. The proposed hierarchy is designed to categorise the facilities based on facility type rather than location. The upcoming implementation of Council's online booking solution presents an opportunity to streamline how fees and charges are calculated and charged to hirers, and the proposed restructure has been developed to work cohesively with the functionalities of the bookable system. Secondly, the Bridgman Park fees relates to the removal of the separate fee for the catering, pavilion, crockery and cutlery to align with how similar spaces operate across the region. Also, the removal of the separate fee and bond for the portable stage at Bridgman Park as the stage is made available to the hirer when booking the facility. In the area of health fees, a number of changes have been proposed to the food health licences and fees to improve the clarity and context of the fees without resulting in changes to the actual fee amounts. In relation to waste fees, a new fee relating to waste that is being accepted from outside the region is being proposed to encourage waste being disposed of in the same region it is created. The proposed change is based on the neighbouring Isaac Regional Council, where the standard base rate, dependent on the type of waste, is charged, plus an additional 20%. Notice will be required and council discretion will be applied as to whether the waste will be accepted. And finally, the other miscellaneous fee amendments include moving the current fee structure for the Springsure multi-purpose clubhouse from hall charges to showgrounds rentals Springsure to better reflect the fee hierarchy structure. The update of the description for the flood search request fee to clarify that it applies region-wide. And finally, the application of the increase in the right to information fees for next financial year, as recently advised by the Department of Justice and Attorney General. From the 1st of July 23, the access application fee will increase from $53.90 to $55.75 and the processing charge from $8.35 to $8.65. Both these fees are exempt from GST and there will be no change to the copying charge of 25 cents, which will remain as per the current year. A recommendation is made that Council adopts these proposed amendments for next financial year's fees and charges register. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I thought this morning that at some point during the day we would be overwhelmed with minutiae, and we have it here. So we've got a lot of detail here, folks. I respectfully acknowledge that these are quite, quite a few of them are quite insignificant little changes, but relate to, I guess, the process that must be sort of adhered to in terms of incorporating the correct detail in fees and charges, and certainly making sure that people understand them and clearly. Councillors, any questions about any of those? Okay, Councillor Moriarty. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carpenter, my apologies.
Just on the first one, for the waste generated from outside the region, the thought just went through my head. There's probably some people that live outside the region but are still using all our centres and things just because that's where the boundary line is. Do we need to be penalising them?
That's in number 16, is it? That for the fee and charges outside of the
page 56 of the agenda.
Yep.
Through the chair, that certainly has been considered. There are a number of scenarios I can even think where people live in our shire but actually dispose of waste in a neighbouring shire. And so this is an issue for all local governments, especially in sort of regional areas where there's the waste facilities are dispersed. Part of our I suppose, drive to, get to a position where we are managing waste that is generated within our shire, that this is one of those ways. The difficult part here will be also how do we determine that waste has come from outside the shire. There will be some complications in administering this. This is certainly something that a lot of local governments do. The administering aspect of it will be quite difficult in some situations. So I take that on board, but I do think that it is still pertinent for our ratepayers that are paying for, particularly the budget was just passed this morning around our waste services, that we try and limit the amount of waste that is disposed of, and that is what is generated within our shire. That's it. It's part of the wider process, I suppose. Point taken though.
And that might be a process, Councillor Carpenter, there, I guess, as the waste strategies more broadly are a little more finessed, that we can actually probably contemplate, those instances, and there will be in certainly our region where there are, people who live in our area that has their centre of interest is not in our shire and vice versa, so that might be a progression of where that might end up.
Good point, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, councillors? All right, well, the recommendation is there to adopt those from 1 to 17. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded Councillor Cruz. All in favour? Against? Thanks, councillors. That's carried. Thank you very much, Arun. Thank you, Helen. Councillors, we shift across to John's area of responsibility, communities. 11.2.1 is our community grants. And there's an amendment here in the favour of some lucky person, I suspect. Thank you, General Manager John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, team, for joining us as well. Good morning again, councillors. I'll hand straight over here. I do want to apologise here for the administrative error that has occurred, and the team will walk through what has occurred there with regard to this. But without any further ado, I'll hand over to Kat, our coordinator for arts and engagement, to tell you more about this error.
Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Through the Chair, today we're presenting an amendment to the grant amount offered to the Emerald Tigers Junior Rugby League Incorporated for the purchase of a bin lifter. In the report presented on the 12th of April 2023, the amount listed and endorsed for the project was $2,423.70. It's become apparent since that the actual amount requested by the group and recommended by the assessment panel was $4,380. Without the full request amount of $4,380, the club will be unable to proceed with the project. Therefore, today the recommendation of this report is that an additional $1,956.30 be approved for the project, so that the total approved amount matches the amount requested. We note that an additional $700.36 will be required above the allocated grant fund budget, which can be accommodated utilising savings within other budget allocations in the operational area. I'll hand over to councillors for any questions.
Thank you very much, Kat. Councillors, any questions? I guess this is just a correction, so. All right.
Yeah.
Go, Councillor Burns.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm all right with the increase in it, but I just want to know where the mistake made, because they're two very different numbers. It's not a digit. So.
Yeah, through the Chair, it was a matter of the amount from a different line, a different grant, being pasted into the wrong line for the wrong grant.
Thanks, Councillor Burns. All right, well, councillors, the recommendation is there that obviously that is rectified, and obviously the Emerald Tigers Junior Rugby League certainly benefit from this. So, is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Burns, seconded Councillor Moriarty. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Councillors, The Regional Waste and Resource Recovery Management Plan for Central Queensland. John will lead us through these, I suspect, with some assistance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The team are just on their way in, Mr Mayor. If you can give me 2 seconds. Time's up.
We're running on Councillor Brimblecombe time today, so
While the team are settling in there, councillors, just a quick introduction. You will be aware, I suppose, we've mentioned this a number of times around the Regional Waste and Resource Recovery Management Plan for Central Queensland. Councillors, or a number of councillors, have been involved in that process as well. Certainly Kate Kate Oz has been heavily involved in this process as well. It's been quite drawn out and needed to be, in all honesty, to get this right. What I would suggest is, with this really rapidly changing climate of waste management, not only in Central Queensland but the wider Queensland community and certainly in Australia, this will continue to develop and amend as that process matures right across our nation. But we're here today to talk about the Regional Waste and Recovery Management Plan for Central Queensland, and I'll hand over to Tracy. Most of you will have met Tracy Jackson, and also to Kate Oles as well. Tracy just had a heart attack, didn't think she was going to be speaking a lot, but thank you, team, for coming in today.
No worries. Thank you, John, and through the chair. Councillors, as John has alluded to, this has been a long journey for our council and our neighbouring councils as part of Central Queensland and our working group. So as the report says, we have had a waste management resource recovery strategy in Queensland since June 2019, and there are some goals that are set in there, and those reduction targets which are outlined in the report around the waste generation, reducing and recycling 75% and send no more than 10% of waste to our landfills by 2050. They are very, very ambitious targets. It's been very clear, and as you'll see in the report, the regional plan that has been created for Central Queensland, like four other regional plans that are in the process of being finalised at the moment, it is impossible for our region to reach those targets, and that's what this regional plan has clearly articulated. It is just one plan as part of the broader waste management strategy, and obviously we'll come to our next report around what we're doing from our own perspective. But importantly today was more around bringing that regional plan to the council. Our neighbouring councils, Rockhampton, Livingston, Gladstone, Banana and Woorabinda, are all part of this process. They have all endorsed this plan for it to basically go to CHRC. I do understand that, Mr Mayor, and I'm sure you'll talk to this, at CHRC yesterday, the regional plan was adopted, so we were the last council to actually endorse the plan. Importantly though, councillors, we've tried, and Councillor Daniels has been involved, as has Councillor Birmingham, around this plan. For our region and for our local government, we've been really clear around this regional plan and ensuring it was not setting us up to fail in terms of putting forward unrealistic actions and making us implement those actions. So a lot of the key actions that you'll see in the regional plan are more directed to our bigger councils like Rockhampton and Gladstone. We've tried to ensure that there is as much flexibility in the regional plan as it relates to Central Queensland. As the report attests to, the biggest focus areas remain on the change of behaviour for our waste management, and that's across the board. And the other component there, and I know it has been discussed with Council on numerous occasions, is our food, organics and our green waste as well. And that remains the two focus areas for the plan. There was a range of other considerations that were done as part of this process. That was expanding FOGO to an actual curbside collection. That is not realistic for our region, and it's not realistic for our local government. That was very quickly put off the table. There is other ones around waste to energy or energy from waste has been discussed as well. We know that they are very costly, and even the amount of waste that's produced within our region is probably unlikely to make that commercially viable. So the biggest, I guess, bang for buck that we can do is that change of behaviour and a big effort on that education. And I know that there's been a lot of advocacy that's been done through LGAQ and also with the Queensland Government as it relates to this particular plan. But what it has highlighted is that those targets are impossible to reach. What it has also highlighted is that there is going to be a need for a lot more funding to come to rural and regional councils, particularly those regional councils that are sitting in the same sitting in the same tier as the SEQ councils as well. So particularly your Rockhamptons, your Gladstones, Townsvilles and equivalent, their levy subsidy will start to be reduced over the next 8 years. So Rockhampton and Gladstone will be facing down to 20% of their levy by July 2030. And for them, that means that there is going to be some significant financial impost put onto those councils. We are fortunate, like our neighbouring councils, where we will retain 100% of that subsidised levy up until July 2030. That doesn't take away from the fact that we're still going to have to look to implement and try and start reducing a lot of the waste that's actually going to our landfills at the moment. So, councillors, as the report says, this is about bringing the port to you for endorsement of the Regional Waste and Resource Recovery Management Plan for Central Queensland, and that the other component of that resolution is to continue to work with CHRC to seek the necessary funding to support the implementation of the plan. Happy to take questions, councillors.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Tracy. Can I just add, I'm assuming Kate's extended that invitation, the meeting yesterday was the CHRC budget meeting, and in that they took the opportunity to discuss, I suppose, where this regional plan was. So they've adopted it in principle, subject to this council ratifying the plan or adopting the plan today. Very clearly, when this was presented to the ROC at the last meeting, we certainly indicated that the components of this, certainly one size didn't fit all, and that was and accepted across the membership, whereas those bigger councils like Rockhampton and Gladstone have a different capacity in terms of recycling and their waste, general waste. That's something we can't achieve here, and then we have the fundamental logistics issue, and then things like FOGO, which quite frankly is quite expensive for them, potentially was quite different to us. So whilst it was this is very much a collective plan and a good plan within obviously the width of and the scope of the members, there is some subtle differences. So I think this plan sort of protects both, but I think there still is enough incentive in the plan to make sure that irrespective of the size, there's still incentives to move ahead and actually try and keep talking through things we can improve, things we can get to. And it must be that way because I think if anything through this process, running concurrently with the work that we're doing as councils, the government or the state government seems to be just as intransigent about not changing the rules at this stage. So I think bigger councils than us have been doing advocacy work that's not necessarily being accepted in terms of reviewing some of those thresholds, and I guess they see that as a disincentive, so the councils sort of cavitate and don't move. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but I guess the reality is we should be very much aware in our future budgeting and those very ambitious targets that we will be always having our skates on to get there, and it will require a lot of innovation in our community and certainly activity within the organisation. So you'll probably see some reaction and reactivity in terms of how John might bring waste back to you in the future and what that cost and sort of service might mean. This is a very, very important strategy, and I'm really pleased to say that CHRC are, I guess, collectively achieving as much or more than most regions. So I think in that respect you need to be confident that's the case. So I think that's a pretty good summary of the CHRC position. Councillor Moriarty.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Absolutely. Well, these reports are just fantastic, the detail in them, the information in them, and I'll just call everyone's attention to the diagram on page 22 of the report and 142 of our agenda. And that just blew me away. And I could not believe the extent of the data that's collected, the types of materials. That is phenomenal. So you commend everyone for that. But by the same token, I also link that across to when I was reading this report, on page 31 of the report and page 151 of our agenda, where it came to community understanding and behaviours. As you quite rightly referred to, Kate, was around, how we all accepting and changing our behaviours as we move forward, and we have to do that through communication and working together. But when I read, if you don't mind, most people do not know where their waste goes, whether it is recyclable or if it can be recovered. Most people in the community are not sure what happens to their waste or whether their actions make a difference. The lack of understanding across the region has led to high contamination rates in curbside bins and low resource recovery rates, as potential recyclable items are disposed rather than recovered. I know that we've been hearing the message loud and clear that I've felt heartened that we're not the only region that this is happening in, and it's something that we share with communities across the region. But again, absolutely commend anything that comes out of our operational plans or whatever to support people being better informed. And I can tell you, I am one of those people, because I often get to the bin going, do I recycle? Where do I put this? So, however, I did want to say that because of that extensive amount of data that is there, that again, just to consider that there are still some very simple ways to communicate with people. And again, I know, John, with all the suggestions of how can we just, I don't know, front page of the newspaper, or every time we put our newsletters out, or whatever it might be, that we do capture, this is how much we're recycling, this is how much our green waste is, 2 or 3 things so that people can see they're making a difference. And I think that just simple things like that will, inform and inspire us, and we know we're making a difference. And obviously there's a lot of public communications that can happen between there and there, so to speak. But I just, no, I keep mentioning that, but it's a really simple way, I think, to help community and inspire community. And again, heartened to know we're not the only ones, and glad to see it's in there that we're all being supported to improve our ability to recycle and recover. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I can, Councillor Moriarty, really valid points, and it's something that we've been looking at internally. So this time last year we did a bin audit, and we know that within the red top bin there's contamination of around 22% in the red top bin of materials that would otherwise be recoverable. The same amount is actually being seen in our yellow top bins as well. It's actually a little bit higher. It's about 25% in the yellow top bins are actually contaminating those recycling. So there is this, issue that we've got there with that level of contamination. We're just about to do another bin audit so we can see where we were from last year to this year. Further, we've been working really closely with Kayla and the PR team around a reboot of the Give a Hoot campaign as well, particularly leading up into Great Northern Cleanup on August 6th. So we've got a range of suite of materials that we're wanting to do, and worked very closely with some colleagues over at Mackay Regional Council. A lot of councils are doing a lot of stuff in the education space, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel when you've got such good material. So Mackay has given us a lot of their great material that we're able to use, but we do have the Give a Hoot, which has been a good, and we just need to elevate that campaign a bit more. So we're really excited to be working with the comms team around that education piece and how we can get that more out to our community, and not just a one-off type event. It's a continual campaign with different targeted things at different points in time.
Yeah, and thank you very much. As we go on our journey, it will be great that that we can all participate. So thank you very much for that, Kate. And great thinking, not reinventing the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Councillors, the recommendation is there for you, so to endorse the Regional Waste and Resource Recovery Management Plan Central Queensland. And the second part of that is obviously the encouragement to work with the Central Queensland Region of Councils to seek the necessary funding and support to implement the plan. So, councillors, someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Daniels, second Councillor Moriarty. Councillors moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Thank you, Kate. And just a slight change, obviously, in the topic, but in the headline, but not the topic. The Central Highlands Regional Council Waste Reduction and Recycling Plan. Back to you, Mr. General Manager. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We go from a regional sort of position back to a more localised view, I suppose, from our own waste reduction recycling plan. Councillors, you will remember, except for Councillor Cruz, I suppose, there has been quite a bit of discussion around this a little while ago now, but we have been waiting, I suppose, for the regional waste plan. So there is some direct correlation, or there was no conflicting aspects with our own localised plan and the regional aspects. That would not be a good position to be in, and I think the Mayor articulated that quite well there before, that you know, we've now got the flexibility and capability within both plans to be where we need to be as a region, and locally as well. So I will hand over to Kate though again to talk through this report, and as always, any questions on the way through will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, John, and through the chair again. So, councillors, as John said, we've gone from the regional scale back down to the local. So you'll recall we came to you in September last year. That followed the release of what was our draft updated resource recovery waste management strategy. So that strategy was the compulsory review, 3-year review of our waste reduction and recycling plan. So there are a lot of acts, plans, strategies all mentioned there. But importantly, as councillors know, when that resource recovery waste management strategy went out to consultation, we've said this, we didn't do a very good job. And we got a range of feedback from community around the strategy itself. There was a lot of good information in it, but it was very technical. It didn't hit the mark around green waste or FOGO or some of the recycling efforts. It seemed to be more technically based, more focused on the operations as opposed to a more holistic approach to our waste management. So we very clearly took that on board. We then did an audit of all of our facilities, and what we have done is, instead of taking that strategy forward to a final, we've actually taken forward a updated waste reduction and recycling plan, which we presented to you in September last year. As John said, though, at that same time, it was announced that we would be going through a regional plan process as well. What we didn't want was to bring back the glossy to council at that time and then have to come back because there wasn't alignment with what was happening at a regional scale. We're confident now that the plan that how we have presented to you today for adoption is reflective of what's happening on that regional plan scale, but also reflects some of the things that we're looking at doing, and some of those actions in the plan we've actually already on that journey to achieving, like the expression of interest. There's a range of actions that we're already doing in that space. So importantly, what we hope is now a really user-friendly document that clearly articulates council's focus over the short, mid and long term as it relates to how we're going about our waste reduction, our recycling plan, and how we're going to look to help achieve or head towards some of those targets that are set at that Queensland strategy level. So again, council, the plan is there. It is really not that different to what we gave you in September. There were some tweaks. Things around FOGO, they were on the short-term horizon. They've been moved out more to a mid-term horizon in terms of the actions in the plan. But other than that, as I said, a lot of those actions are already in play at the moment, and it sets out a really clear focus for the Resource Recovery and Environmental Health Business Unit around what our key actions will be. It helps drive where our budget settings will be, and it certainly, clearly in my view, helps us to better articulate what we want to do with our community as it relates to our strategy as well. So councillors, again, happy to take any questions, but the plan is there for your adoption today.
Councillor Daniels.
Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing this to us, and just really confirming that this plan now supersedes the plan 2016-2026 and also the draft that went out for consultation. So anything that was mentioned in those documents that's obviously not mentioned in this is no longer on the table.
That's correct.
That's for the community to understand
Yes.
too. And then a question I had around, sorry, I've now just lost my spot, is in the action where we talk about 75% of our community being able to access or can access a waste facility that if they don't have a bin service. What is that? And we talk about can access. What is that detail there?
Yeah, sure. Through the chair, so Councillor Daniels, you're right. It's council to ensure that 75% of residents that do not have access to a curbside collection can access a resource recovery facility or a bulk bin station, is how the plan is written. So at the moment, what have access means is that residents are within 20 to 25 minutes of a transfer station being a resource recovery facility or a bulk bin station. So that's 75% of our residents. So generally the industry standard is around 20 minutes is the ideal for general industry standard to be in contact. So at the moment, what we know is that the other 25% who aren't captured in the 75%, we believe that there's some areas that aren't within that 25-minute zone. They would be south of Ralston, small number of houses between Ralston and Springshaw because there's 45 minutes between those locations, small number of houses between Capella and Rubyvale, and also some of the larger areas around Willows, Anarchy and Bogantungan. So they're the ones, so they're the 25% who wouldn't be within 25 minutes of a bulk bin station or a transfer station. Now that also relates to, as you will recall, and your comment before, Councillor Daniels, in the previous strategy, there was potential actions that related to some of the closures of some of those stations going forward. What this plan looks at now in concert with that expansion of curbside, we've previously presented to council that there's 116 properties which are viable for that curbside expansion. There are only 116, and that was based on logistics, commercial, and also did the community actually want that curbside expansion. So even when we add the 116 to the curbside, we are confident that 75% of our residents would still be within a 25-minute, and the balance 25% are outside that 25-minute zone. That's okay.
Thank you, Coach. Questions? Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I did note that obviously it's required by legislation to have this management plan. So do they define within that plan? I know sometimes the state government, you know, if it's legislated for you to have a management plan, there'll be certain aspects of the plan such as, you know, a strategic vision or goals or whatever. And I just wanted to ask, was that part of the requirement by state government to have a vision, a strategic vision for the document?
Yep. Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Moriarty, you are correct. The government's pretty light on in terms of exactly what needs to be in the plan. What they are clear about is it needs to be readily accessible and user-friendly are their terms. And importantly, it does need to have a vision and it does need to set out actions for the council over at least a 5-year period. So one of the feedback we got from the previous strategy, it wasn't really clear around what some of those key actions were, and the view was that it wasn't as user-friendly as it could be. So we're confident that it now would meet the requirements, and you are correct that a council is required to either have a waste reduction and recycling plan or a strategy. So some of our northern councils have actually now relied on their regional plan as their own equivalent of their waste reduction and recycling plan. But for ours and for all the comments we made before around the regional plan, it's important that we had one that was specific to ours. That previous one, the 2016, is a little bit outdated in terms of making sure that we're being more contemporary with some of our responses in terms of what we should be doing as a council as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. I just wanted that clarification because it's good to understand that when the state do require councils to have those management plans, that they do have some requirements in there. And then when council has their own suite of those documents, that they can have their own particular hierarchy of how that terminology fits in, given that you've got a regional vision. The other thing I did want to ask was, is there an opportunity? I know the give a hoot is good. Give a hoot, report those who pollute. I just would like to see that balanced off with something where we can reward people who are doing the right thing as well, encouraging citizens. Stopping on citizens, I find a bit challenging, but I absolutely understand the intent. But yeah, the other thing was this is excellent. This is just great. It's easy to read. It's very clear, and just to make sure that is this a document for the public or this is just an internal document, really, or.
Through the chair, so the intention is if council adopts it, it is a publicly facing document. Okay. And yes, the community would be looking at this document to see where our actions are, and there will be, I guess, some internal discussion around what we may report on. So things like our bin audits, we like to have those public because it's obviously evidence and information is key to help campaign those sorts of change. So no, the intention would be that this would sit on the council website like the current waste reduction and recycling plan sits on the council website now.
Yeah, awesome. My only comment around that really was, I guess the other question that went with that, but I'll probably answer myself anyway, and offer it as a comment. But if this document was to be inclusive of community or have community have some buy-in to it, as much as I love all the photos in here, I'd probably have some community members as well. Yeah, great photos, but I'm not sure what we're trying to portray there with our images. So I just thought a couple of photos of even the public using some of our facilities, as much as I love all these photos, yeah, there's my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Moriarty. I thought Councillor Rolfe, did you have a comment? Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. On page, it's theme number 4.2, 279 of 382 in the agenda. The council undertaking audits of bulk bins and park bins. Does that include the bulk bins at our showgrounds?
Through the chair, Councillor Rolfe, no, it wouldn't at this point in time.
So there are, okay, all right, it's something we'll get operational about. Thanks.
In saying it through the chair, that is one of the areas though, that community recycling capability that's there in some of those major facilities is something that we need to address. I know Councillor Daniels has mentioned this to me a number of times, and as a team we need to move forward with this. We've had a major event last week at Agro. The recyclable and the yes, the amount that would be generated out, that is one thing, but the exposure that we could get from an education perspective there, having public recycling capability at an event like that is enormous. So showgrounds and show societies and show events are exactly the same. Yes, you get the great separation, but you also get great exposure as well. So that's something that we've very much talked about as a team.
Thank you, John. All right. Councillors, if you've had enough time there, the recommendation is there that the Central Highlands Regional Council adopts the Waste Reduction and Recycling Plan 23 to 30. Councillors, someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Roll, seconded Councillor Brimblecombe. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. Councillors. Thank you very much, Kate and Tracy, and lots of others, I'm sure, that have done a lot of work. Thank you. Councillors, moving on to the General Manager, Commercial and Corporate Services, Carrie, we have a agenda item here, 11.3.1, that relates to the business continuity policy. I'll wait for Carrie's assistants to come past. I noticed they were bowing to the waste team. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, in November 2021, Council's internal auditors had undertaken an audit of Council's business continuity planning. The auditors made several findings identifying weaknesses in the design and effectiveness of Council's business continuity that required addressing by management. The auditor's first finding was that Council has not established a formal business continuity policy that sets out the purpose, context, scope and governance of a business continuity program. I'll now hand over to the Manager of Governance, Property and Information Management, Rhys Dennison, and Grant Licot's Coordinator of Governance and Legal to speak to this report.
Excellent. Thank you very much, General Manager Clinton. Good morning, Councillors, and through the Chair. Councillors, the report before you recommends that Council adopt a business continuity policy. Now, a business continuity policy is the important first step in implementing a business continuity management framework, because a business continuity policy signals Council's intention to then go on and establish two more important documents. So one of those is a business continuity plan. So that'll be an organisation-wide plan that documents how Council will react to a disruptive event when it first occurs. And then two business continuity sub-plans. So they're documents that are team-specific, that set out how each team will react to ensure that their critical functions are delivered when a disruptive event occurs. So without the overarching business continuity policy, Council's intention to establish the business continuity plan and sub-plans just isn't clear. So that's all we're requesting of Council today, is that it adopt this overarching business continuity policy, because that gives us then the green light to go away and develop the business continuity plan and sub-plans with what I imagine will be extensive and appropriate consultation with the relevant business units that will take us some time. In doing all of that, of course, as General Manager Clinton points out, Council will be addressing that outstanding internal audit recommendation, suggesting that Council needs to improve its business continuity management framework. And once the remainder of that framework is established, it will be subject to approval, endorsement, review and oversight by both Council's Risk Management Steering Group and Council's Audit Committee, of course. So the recommendation here, Councillors, is that Council take this important first step in adopting the business continuity policy as presented. Happy to take any questions, of course.
Thank you, Rhys, and thank you for, I guess, I think very pointedly pointing at the substantial difference here. You've got to have a policy to obviously continue with the actual policy. So I understand, certainly from that audit committee sort of oversight there, that that's been identified. and clearly, as you point out, are very much a first step, and certainly detail to come in terms of the subsequent subordinate policies that follow. So I understand.
Absolutely correct, Mr Mayor. And again, while I would ordinarily have workshopped this in detail with councillors, given the fact that this is very vanilla and an initial step, we haven't taken that step yet. It's, of course, the details that will come in the plans and the sub-plans that will be discussed at length with the relevant officers, as mentioned.
Yep, thank you, Reece. Councillor Syphon.
Thank you. I get that. I understand now why the policy has come at this point in time. So my question's not really related to this, but we used to have policy workshops every quarter, and I really don't recall having one this year, but I may just be getting a bit grey. We are still having quarterly, I am due to go to the hairdressers soon. We are still having quarterly policy reviews so that we can do our due diligence with all the policies?
Councillor Syphon, an astute observation, and let me placate any concern that you've got. There is a report on the rolling reports at the moment where I will come and present to you an overhaul or a revised policy review framework, because what I was conscious of when I first got here is potentially we are, whilst you're exercising your due diligence, perhaps overburdening councils with reviewing every council policy every 12 months and, of course, officers operationally and things like that. So what we've been thinking of in the background is perhaps amending the policy review framework itself to give a bit of breathing room where policies don't have to come back every 12 months, perhaps they come back every 2 years or 3 years as appropriate. That will take us some time to bring the report. I know it was scheduled a couple of months ago, but because of incidents that occurred, I did push that off for a couple of months, so that's on me. But it certainly is on the rolling reports, Councillor Syphon, so get excited for it. It will be here very soon if that
I'm always
addresses your
excited
concern.
for policies.
Fantastic.
I do enjoy them, so I'm really pleased to hear that. But I do agree, 12 months is too soon, so that's fine. As long as we fought long and hard to get those workshops, so as long as they aren't deleted altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Syphon. Good point. Any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to point out that the good thing is that our audit processes are working and these things are picked up. But also on first reading, just wanted to make sure everybody does know that all these bits of business continuity is actually happening in council, that this policy now and a potential new framework actually helps us revisit all of this, just to make sure that the public think that we do not have it, but we do have aspects of this that we're now refreshing and pulling in, and like you quite rightly say, we now have our policy to do that. So that was just my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Certainly, there's a number of documents within council that guide us in a significant way as to how to immediately respond to any event that impacts our operational activities, and we utilise those documents readily available. However, this framework will then unify all of those documents, give it a refresh and a brand that then links all of those together in some continuity, which will assist us.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining all of that. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Moriarty. All right, councillors, the recommendation is there that we adopt the Business Continuity Policy, CHRCP, which is number 0075. Someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Moriarty, second Councillor Cruz. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Thank you, Reece. Thank you, Grantley. Councillors, in next, item 11.3.2 is in relation to the appointment of the alternate director for the Central Highlands Development Corporation. Over to you, Carrie, again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, on 8th of March 2023, Council resolved to make amendments to the Central Highlands Development Corporation Constitution. One of these amendments related to the appointments of alternate directors for local government directors. Under Clause 26 of the amended Constitution, Council may appoint an alternate director to act in place of a primary local government director. I now hand over to Reece Dennison, Manager for Governance, Property and Information Management, and the Coordinator, Grantley Cox, for Governance and Legal, to speak to this report.
Thank you again, General Manager Knudsen, through the Chair. Councillors, as General Manager Knudsen points out, this report's recommending the appointment of an alternate director to the Board of Central Highlands Development Corporation to stand in for a local government director as needed. So as you'll well be aware, the current local government directors of CHDC are Mr Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor and Councillor Daniels. And an alternate director from amongst councillors is required to stand in for those current local government directors if they are absent, on leave, etc. Otherwise, the CHDC board will not have the requisite quorum to make formal decisions at board meetings. So when standing in, the alternate will be subject to the same requirements, statutory common law requirements, as the current directors, and like all current local government directors, will not be paid a sitting fee. Also, the alternate will hold their position until all current local government directors vacate their director positions, or until the alternate director ceases to be a councillor themselves. So some points to note here with this report, councillors. The officer recommendation you'll see before you has left a placeholder for a councillor here today, who is of course not already a director, to effectively nominate themselves to be the alternate director. But should two or more councillors here today wish to nominate themselves, what I would propose is a simple ballot process, perhaps a more simple one than we recently went through at Blackwater in relation to Councillor Cruz. And that ballot process would then determine the preferred nominee to put forward as the alternate director. So happy to field any questions or queries on that, of course, councillors.
Councillor Roll.
Yeah, are we able to nominate another councillor, or do they have to nominate themselves?
It would be prudent for the councillor to nominate themselves, given that a subsequent process here would be that councillor would have to sign documentation to say that they are willing to be the director. So rather than force them to do it, let's let them volunteer, I think.
Councillor Syme.
When we had the workshop on this, I asked a question as to if the new director, the alternate director is, and as it states in the report, acts on their own behalf and not at the direction of the absent director. How does the alternate director do their due diligence? Because this isn't a Mickey Mouse board, this is a high-level operating board. So my concern, I'd be very interested in it, but for my own protection, and I see there is a risk if someone steps up, if they haven't done their due diligence and doesn't understand what is happening within the organisation. And that wasn't, I didn't get a clear answer at that at the workshop. Is it that they know nothing and they just rock into the meeting with, 5 days notice, and do they then have to run around and do all the research and background on agenda items?
Councillor Syme, fantastic question. A couple of things that we'd point out there. Of course, councillors are kept abreast, I think, with quarterly updates on the general business of CHDC, but certainly, and I can't speak for Mr Darling, I know he's in the room, but I'd imagine that for the period of time that the alternate is in place, that it might be a conversation between the board member and the CEO and executive team at CHDC in order to bring them up to speed sufficiently about the matters that they'll be considering for that specific period that they're acting as the alternate.
So you assume, or is that how it will go?
It's very difficult for me to speak on behalf of CHDC, Councillor Syme, so I hope you can appreciate that.
Thanks, Reece, and my apologies, Peter, I didn't acknowledge you, I didn't see you come into the room, so you've done that very stealthily, but Peter, if you wanted to respond, if you like, just if you wanted to come to this microphone, Peter, if that's more convenient. They don't trust us anymore, you'll see there's a big sign there where you have to turn it on, so.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, can I just confirm the question is how would the alternate director be onboarded? Onboarded, so
pretty much,
introduced to their duties and
notice for the agenda item, because let's be honest, the brief we get every quarter is a briefing. It's not in depth understanding. So is it just a short briefing on the agenda items only without any background or whatever?
Councillor Syfe, that's a great question. Our intent would be to fully onboard the alternate director as if they are a director. We've just transitioned into a platform called Convene that keeps all of our governance documents there. That alternate director would have full access to those documents and could be kept up to speed at all times. And beyond that, we do brief our directors on issues as they come up. So we would continue to do that as well.
If you've got that sort of access, then you can do your due diligence, and I think it is very important that this is, like I said, it's not a Mickey Mouse ball. It's a operates at a high level, and I think Burgundy Alternatives has to do the same. So thank you for that.
It's okay.
So I think, without going off on a tangent, I think the Corporations Act clearly states what the responsibilities of a director is, and that obviously involves being, obviously, as Councillor Syfe is saying, to be across all that information. So the reality is, as the mechanism, and I think there's been some discussion about this, not absolutely perfect, I think, in terms of an outcome, but I guess the reality would be it's more of a fallback position if there was ever that really, really urgent situation where an alternate was required. The staging and the frequency of the meetings would allow that, certainly most of the time that is to conveniently make sure that all directors can attend. But that mechanism now is, and would and should, always involve the proper onboarding, Councillor Syfe. So as you rightly say, you would be informed whether or not there is an opportunity to attend, even in the short time of the tenure of this council. It's still a mechanism that's there. So I think that question's been well answered, Peter. Thank you for that. So, Reece, there's nothing you would add to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor, any other questions? Oh, sorry, go, Councillor Carpenter.
I was just going to nominate, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Carpenter's nominated. Any other councillors want to nominate? Councillor Syfe? Okay, so you now have the...
We've brought the box, Mr Mayor. We've brought the posting house. We've brought it all. So there shouldn't be a tie here because there should be 7 remaining voters, I believe.
In terms of procedure, we don't need to appoint a returning officer. We will simply just ask that you collect the votes from the councillors and obviously let us know who that very fortunate director would be. So thank you, councillors. Oh, I should say, is anyone, while we're getting the box, now that you know that process is in place, anyone else want to nominate? Or I just want to test these guys out. They've been pushed a little harder than this, so. Geez, he's not even giving you one, is he? Reece, you've just overlooked Councillor Syfe for a ballot paper.
Yeah, I think good governance would suggest that if Councillor Syfe is nominated, that I might not.
Right, okay. So,
Councillor Syfe in the vote, so the remaining 7 councillors would vote as to whether they'd like to appoint Councillor Syfe or Councillor Carpenter.
I think everyone should have a vote. Yeah, thank you, Reece. Yeah.
That's what we usually do.
Yeah. Now, of course, our handwriting expert Grantley will automatically know whether Councillor Syfe voted for herself. But anyhow, well done. Thank you, Reece. All right, thank you, sir. All right. Oh, yep. All right, councillors. Now, can I just, for posterity and recording, every councillor has a ballot paper, which is this document here. Rach, just bring me up to clues on the Electoral Commission rules if I miss anything. You've got a pen. Councillor, just write one name on the ballot and put it in that box. Thank you.
And are we expecting to read these out again like the football scores, Mr Mayor? Are we? Yeah.
I resisted from referring to that, Reece. But anyway.
Just the totals?
Just the total will be fine. And clearly on the numbers, it won't be a tie, I'm hoping.
That's what I see. Oh.
But, what is it? This is sort of like this one, is it? should have enough time to do your water strategy nice comfortably in the time we've got all of it. Yeah.
Mr Mayor, the results as we have them, 4 votes for Councillor Cypher and 5 votes for Councillor Carpenter.
All right. Councillor Carpenter, you're elected. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Thank you, Councillor Cypher. Now, that's the first part of this. So, councillors, in the recommendation there, the council member, as the sole member of the Central Islands Development Limited, votes in favour of passing the following resolutions without accompanying pursuant to those sections. The member pursuant to clause 26 of the company's constitution appoints Councillor Anne Carpenter as identified as an alternate director to act in the place of all local government directors, being Mayor Hayes, Deputy Mayor Councillor Rolfe and Councillor Megan Daniels for the period until the last local government director for whom the alternate director is appointed to act vacates office as director or otherwise in accordance with the clause 27 of the company's constitution. So that's quite specific there, so that's everyone. The Chief Executive Officer is authorised as Council's delegate in the second part under the Local Government Act section 236 to sign a record of the member resolutions without a company general meeting for the purpose of giving it to the company to record the resolution in the company's minutes book. All right, councillors, so that is there. So someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Burns, second Councillor Brimelcombe. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Right. Alternate director, you'll be onboarded, Councillor Carpenter. You may be sorry, but you will be onboarded. Councillors, infrastructure and utilities under General Manager Jason Houlihan and officers are dealing with 11.4.1, which is the adoption of the water security strategy, 2022 to 2042, and water security action plan 2022 to 25. So thank you, Jason. If you could bring us up to speed, thank you. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good afternoon, councillors. Today represents a significant milestone for the Water Utilities team and council. The Central Highlands Regional Council Water Security Strategy 2022 to 2042 is a key strategy that forms part of a suite of documents that the Water Utilities team will use to continue to make informed decisions and recommendations to council to ensure that council can sustainably continue to deliver the critical service of water treatment and delivery to the communities of the Central Highlands. This strategy formed part of our operational plan objectives since 2021-2022, and that commenced a considerable amount of work that has been undertaken to get this strategy to you today. The strategy, along with the action plan, identifies 5 key pillars that the Manager of Water Utilities will explain when running through the report today, and looks to the future to ensure that council and our communities have a reliable water supply into the future, given regional growth and climate impacts, including planning for adverse water supply situations in times of significant drought. I'd like to acknowledge the Manager of Water Utilities, Amber Robinson, and her team, including Julianne Clark, Nathan Litzow, and our Water Utilities Strategic Manager, Moira Zellinger, who have been diligently working on this strategy and action plan that is at the leading edge of the water industry. I would also like to acknowledge the cooperation of key stakeholders such as the Department of Regional Development, Manufacturing and Water and Sunwater, who have provided input into the strategy, along with councillors who have helped guide the direction for the strategy, and all of the community members who have contributed through the 2 rounds of community consultation for this project. I'd now like to call upon the Manager of Water Utilities, Amber Robinson, to present the report for the proposed adoption of the Water Security Strategy and Action Plan.
Thank you, Jason. Through the chair, good afternoon. Afternoon, everybody. How are you all?
Good, Amber.
That's good. Now, the water security strategy, I know you've seen this a number of times in workshops and the draft, and I'm really excited to say that we've now finalised it after our community consultation, last community consultation session. So, as Jason mentioned, the water security strategy is one of a suite of strategic documents that we're currently working on to better plan and manage and operate our services to the residents of Central Highlands. The water security strategy in particular is a 20-year strategy. It assists us to know how to manage our water supplies during normal operations, but also during times of water scarcity. So that can include drought, but it can also include ongoing climate change or, you know, unknown circumstances that may pop up in the next 20 years. We have using this strategy to develop a long-term capital works program, long-term operational program, and just better understand what we need to do to deliver to the community. The water security strategy is built around 5 pillars, and they are demand management, security of allocation, improvement of monitoring, system augmentation and emergency planning. Now, there are 2 sub-plans to this strategy that are currently well into their drafting phase, and one of them is the demand management plan, which will be coming to be workshopped with you all in August as a draft. And one is the the adverse condition plan document, which is part of our emergency planning. And that is being developed in conjunction with state departments, as we will need their assistance when we get to that point and have agreements in place before we get to that point. We got a lot of feedback from the second round of community consultation. Most of the feedback was not actually in relation to the water security strategy, but it gave us an opportunity to speak to the community and let them have their voices heard around other water or wastewater related issues, and that's really great, and that's information that we're taking on board and dealing with in a separate avenue. So I guess from me, I'm really proud of this work, the work that my team have delivered here, and I would really hope that you're happy to adopt this document going forward with a 20-year strategy and a 3-year action plan that will obviously be reviewed, 4-year action plan, which will be reviewed as we move forward.
Right. And I can hear you encouraging lots of questions, Amber.
Yes,
yeah,
or
thank you.
not. I don't mind.
Can I just say, it's a very, very minor comment. It's even within this document, even the schematic that just shows even our water supply is great. As an educational tool, not just for us, but just for people to just even get a fundamental understanding of the extent of our water supplies and just being able to talk to it. I know that's a very simple thing, but sometimes you saw yesterday people, the conversations and the understanding that comes from a tangible, touching thing that you can understand and see is huge, and obviously things like this go a long way towards it. So I just want to congratulate you, on the construction of this, and probably whilst doing so, being very aware of the fact that, in our budget that's been adopted today, and quite very much this strategy going forward, there's a very, very, clear and distinct responsibility here about our investment that needs to happen here. And it's not lost. I mean, there are some very, very strong advocacy that needs to happen. The state government recognises the priority that water security has gotten at conferences, and it's been reflected in motions around all sorts of ancillary stuff around management, workforce, identifying water and wastewater treatment as, a desirable immigration occupation. All of those things indicate just how important this is. So it's a very, very good document for us. I know we've done a lot of work and a lot of plans before, but I'm hoping that this gives people the tool to really be able to go ahead and an understanding to those decision makers that our investment needs to match the urgency and the risk, I think, that's indicated in this. So really much appreciated. So, Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and absolutely would like to reinforce those sentiments. This is an excellent document. It's very detailed. It hits all the high points. We know what the priorities are, and particularly at that community level as well. The information in here is fantastic. You're going to be disappointed if I don't ask this question, but we have just adopted a policy, or there is always a policy about defined urban area policy, but that just happened to come up even though I had read this, was going to ask the same question, that Bluff is actually its own urban area, And in our water security strategy, we've got Blackwater Bluff. I won't guess, but I will just ask, given that Bluff has 700 odd, what do you call them?
Residents, customers.
Connections. Other communities have got 199 or less than that. Just wondering why Bluff isn't probably a separate. If I could just ask that, please. Thank you.
Of course, you can ask that. To be honest, I'm not across the policy that you just mentioned. However, Bluff is actually supplied from Blackwater. It doesn't have its own treatment plant. So the Blackwater water treatment plant basically pumps water to a storage location in Bluff, and that supplies Bluff, which is why we looked at it as a holistic system.
Yeah, which is what I assumed, but I just wanted you to say it. Thank you very much. The other one was, I think I might have asked this before, the photo in there, just checking. That picture in there that's at the top of each of the place-based strategies, is that at the Fairburn Dam?
Through the chair, no, councillor. It's just a generic photo of a dam. It's nothing within our region.
Can we have a photo of our region in there? Like, anyway, going forward, there might be an updated version, but I just would love to see a photo of our region there rather than a generic one. So thank you very much.
Councillor Seifert.
Thank you. With the Capella pipeline, on page, I'm looking at page 313 of the document, of course, we've started the replacement of that section. So at the moment, that's our alternative water source, is the pipeline still, and it's documented there, rightly so, alternative as identified by Capella's future source investigation. So and I know this is a really difficult question to ask and to answer because we don't know, we've got to investigate where else, if that pipeline isn't available to us in the future, where else would we get water? When are we going to start that kind of investigation? Is it best to wait till we find out what's happening with the Capella, the future of Thierry and all of that? Or are we sort of putting out feelers now? I mean, have we got thoughts now where it could come from? If I always like a backup plan, I guess. Yes.
Good question. And in the budget that was adopted this morning, there was a capital project called Water Security Planning, I think it was. The first project that is, the specification is currently being drafted, is to go out for an option study for a secondary source of water for Capella. You would have also noticed in the capital budget that there's a Capella water treatment plant upgrade works. We will be using the outcome of that option study to also potentially augment that project as well, because obviously if we get water from another source, that may change what we need in the treatment plant as well. So that's why we're doing that option study first thing in the financial year, so that we can have it done within the next few months and be able to use that moving forward with the rest of our capital works.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Brimilco.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on page 303, 6 of the document, the current populations or customers serviced. Okay, I've just noticed some of the figures from the ABS. They don't relate to that, but I did see the fine print where the equivalent persons. So how does that relate to the number of, or production of water for that size?
There's, to work out the equivalent persons, it's not just around people in household, it's also around commercial businesses, industry, and a calculation is done to sort of go, this business would use the amount of water of approximately X number of persons, which is why it's that equivalent person number as opposed to number of physical people, if that makes sense,
No,
residing
that's
in the
good.
location.
I hadn't read the fine print, and when I pulled it up, I did, so.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not a
Councillor
question,
Daniels, sorry, you.
it's more a comment. This is just a great document. I think I have plans to take it out with me when I go to different communities because water's always of interest to communities to communicate what their usage is, what the concerns are, what we're focusing on, you know, especially, you know, give an example of the Willows community, which is, as we know, is a community that we don't provide a service to, but has an interest in how they get their water. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Daniels. All right. Any other questions, councillors?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, we're talking while you were speaking there, Councillor Daniels, but we're just inquiring, and I think that Councillor Brimblecombe did clear that, but I didn't quite get there. With particularly Blackwater, with the equivalent estimated population, that population obviously includes the non-residential workforce, doesn't it? Yep, because Blackwater's around the 6,000.
Yeah, so that I'm not across the exact calculation that they use, but they would have looked at all of the accommodations and the camps and the industry there to work out an equivalent person's number.
Yeah, just clarifying, and also, I mean, it's other communities as well, and as well for Bluff as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Roll.
Amber, just going back to the beginning of your document, the have your say comments.
Yes.
Can we please address them as well? Besides, I know that they're not part of the strategy and the plan. However, the concerns over, you know, standpipes and all this sort of stuff needs to be, because there has been quite a lot of comment about having washdown facilities additional on this new inland freight route and that sort of thing. So there's going to be I would think there may be quite a session on it, on the use of water for, you know, people outside our region, that sort of stuff, so.
Yeah, of course, and one of the things that we're about to be releasing out to the market for our current strategy work for this year is water and wastewater master planning work, which will look into, I guess, where all of our pipelines and treatment plants are, and also future development, but we'll also look at things like, do we need an extra sandpipe here? Do we not need an extra sandpipe here? Like, how do we actually provide what we need there?
That's good, thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Roll. All right, councillors, the recommendation is that we adopt the following documents, and they're numbered, they're 1, 2 and 3, the Water Security Strategy, the Water Security Action Plan and the CHRC Water Security Strategy statements that go with that. Is someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Moriarty, second by Councillor Daniels. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Councillors, just in terms of timing, we will deal with the next agenda item 11.4.2 and then we might break for our lunch break, councillors, and then come back and deal with our CHDC agenda item after that. So to you, General Manager. Jason, I'll let you lead this off again.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The next report is with regard to the Building Our Regions Fund Round 6 and a funding agreement we have in place for the Capella Thierry Pipeline project. That project is well underway and is continuing to be delivered across the financial year into next financial year. The department has requested a procedural part of the procedure with relating to the funding agreement is a milestone for council to acknowledge some contribution to the funding. So I'll hand over to the Manager of Project Management Office, Kim Downey, to run you through the details of that request. Thank you.
Thank you, GM Houlihan. Good afternoon, councillors. As just stated, this report is basically to help us meet a milestone requirement of our Building Our Regions Fund. 18 months ago, we actually brought a report to council seeking endorsement to submit projects for funding under Building Our Regions Round 6. One of the projects put up was a $4 million project for the Thierry Capella pipeline. We submitted an application for $2 million funding and were successful in that. Signed the funding agreement for the actual funds of $1.997,550,000 from them. Commenced the project, met milestone 1. When we reported on milestone 2, we have been informed that the original resolution is not sufficient. So we're here today to actually present a very specific resolution to meet the requirements of our milestone 2 for the funding. And it really is just to reinforce that council is committed to deliver the project, that we will make the funding, internal funding available, and we accept responsibility for any funding shortfall.
Thank you very much, PMO. I love the options that we have when we get these. So, councillors, you can see there that the recommendation there is obviously, as Kim rightly points out, very specific and obviously meets that criteria for that funding agreement. It endorses the amounts. It confirms the commitment to delivering it, and clearly the third one is obviously the on the hook one, where I guess you are responsible for any funding shortfall if costs or other contributors change. So I'm not sure that we wouldn't have understood and probably been responsible for that anyhow, but these are the specific words. So I'm not sure that we need any other questions on this one. It's very much procedural. Are people happy with that? Moved by Councillor Burns. I think you were responsible in the first round in some way, shape or form. And Councillor Moriarty. So moved by Councillor Burns, seconded Councillor Moriarty. That you obviously that we endorse a financial co-contribution, we confirm our commitment and acknowledge the responsibility for the funding shortfall. So moved and seconded, councillors, all in favour? Carried. Beautiful. Okay. Well, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, can I be a bit forward? We've only got 3 more items on the agenda.
I was just going to say, you've read my mind, Councillor Moriarty. If Peter Dowling is here, if you want to keep cracking on, are people happy to do that? Yep. Okay. Peter, yeah, run into the spot there. Councillor Brimblecomb's got us mildly scared today, so. Councillors, this is a report in relation to the new tourism network approach, the realignment of regional tourism organisations, and obviously we've had a number of reports over a significant period of time. So, Peter, if you can lead us through this, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, councillors. This report relates to the tourism and events, or TEQ's new tourism network approach, specifically the realignment of regional tourism organisation boundaries, and in particular decision as to whether Central Highlands Regional Council aligns itself with the proposed Queensland Country RTO in accordance with TEQ's proposed new boundaries, or remains aligned with Capricorn Enterprise RTO, or chooses not to align with either RTO. Councillors, as is in the report. There are a number of elements to this particular report. A lot of it's around alignment. So alignment of strategy with TEQ's tourism industry reference panels towards 2032, reshaping Queensland's visitor economy. So there's an alignment there that looks at the proposed new tourism network. There's a visitor experience alignment there from coastal to country. And there's a brand consistency and alignment from coastal to country. And then the other element to this report is around the opportunity. You'll see that we have 3 options that have been put forward. Prior to those 3 options, we did, after discussion with council, go back out to our stakeholders that are engaged with Capricorn Enterprise, and they did give us some good feedback. We have the majority of those members, or all of those members, are very happy with the existing arrangements in terms of the service from Capricorn Enterprise. However, 12 of those 20 members are very open to realigning and moving to a new RTO. 4 of the members are not, and they're very staunch in terms of their interest in staying in the current arrangement. Of those optionalities, staying with Capricorn Enterprise, moving to the new Queensland Country organisation, or stepping away from RTOs, we've put forward a recommendation to Council that we endorse, the Council endorses membership transition from Capricorn Enterprise to the proposed Queensland Country RTO under Tourism and Events new tourism network approach in 2023-24. The other recommendation going forward is that Council considers approving the CHRC CEO, Inform Tourism and Events Queensland, Capricorn Enterprise, and what is currently called Southern Queensland Country Tourism of Council's decision. And the third recommendation to Council is that it approves Council officers and CHDC officers to initiate the development of a transition plan with all relevant parties to the proposed Queensland Country RTO. Councillors, I'm more than happy to take questions.
Thank you, Peter. Councillors, yeah. Councillor Rolfe.
Peter, just on that, when I was reading this last proposed Queensland Country Regional Tourism Organisation, are we absolutely convinced that that will happen? Is it is the development of the Queensland Country Regional RTO at a stage where that's what we'll be a member of?
Yes, that is my understanding in discussions with their CEO.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Rolfe. Councillor Daniels.
Thank you very much. And as you highlighted, there's Capricorn Enterprise, our current RTO, has 20 member businesses from the Central Highlands, and in the report you've highlighted that there's around 250 we've identified visitor economy businesses. I'm correct in that figure? So obviously there's 230 that aren't members of the Capricorn Enterprise, which is a shame that they're not engaged with the RTO. Did you, in your consultation, did you engage with any of those businesses that were potentially were not members to find out reasons why they were not becoming a member of the RTO?
In a broad sense, we did, Councillor Daniels. We did offer the opportunity through webinars and then one-on-one conversations to a number of those stakeholders. It's a mixed response, to be honest. We find that it's important to look at the context of the 255 businesses that are in the visitor economy, and many of them are not tourism operators. They are the sort of the supporting mechanisms for the visitor economy, accommodation, houses, etc. So we didn't go directly to a lot of those stakeholders because we really wanted to focus on the Capricorn Enterprise membership specifically, which we did. But in our TAP and TAN and TAG groups, as you're well, sorry about the acronyms, but those groups do encapsulate stakeholders beyond the Capricorn Enterprise membership, and therefore we did give them the opportunity to offer their opinion and feedback Very few did that in that context. But as I suggested, our new visitor economy coordinator did go directly to all the members and offer them the opportunity to have their input. We did also try to ground truth, Chair, the conversion rate of a number of businesses in regions to membership, and TEQ weren't in a position to offer that, because we were trying to better understand, is a 10% return rate for Capricorn Enterprise on our current broad base of business and industry in this space a good number or not? And we're not able to determine that. But I think the interest from Queensland Country to be more active in that space is what's of value for us.
Thank you. Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say really that from my perspective, I know it's called Southern Queensland Country Tourism as the not RTO but Destination Management Organisations, so DMOs. Getting back on that acronym bandwagon there, Peter. I just think that for our region, I know that with the tourism, enterprise, it's been fantastic to be linked with those guys and the Southern Great Barrier Reef, but I just think it's a good opportunity I just think that we identify more with that country rather than the coastal or the outback rural. So that sort of inland country, I think that to me, it's a positive for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Janice. Well, councillors, look, the recommendation is there. It's in three parts. That the Central Highlands Regional Council endorses membership transition from CAP Enterprise to the proposed Queensland Country Regional Tourism Organisation under Tourism Events Queensland New Tourism Network approach in 23-24. The second part is to approve the Central Highlands Regional Council CEO and to inform Tourism and Events Queensland, Capricorn Enterprise and Southern Queensland Country Tourism Council's decision. And the third part obviously approves the Central Highlands Regional Council officers and Central Highlands Development Corporation officers to initiate the development of a transition plan with all relevant parties to the proposed Queensland Country Regional Tourism Organisation. So that's the three parts. Is someone happy to move that? Moved by Councillor Cypher. Seconded Councillor Moriarty. Councillors have been moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. Can we place on record that whilst we've been deliberating this change and the strategy for some considerable period of time, it was in the best interest of certainly our members, the region, and certainly stakeholders more broadly. In a sense, it took us a little longer, but it was an important decision to make. In the end, I suspect, with the greatest respect, I don't think this is a comparative because we have had good service from Capricorn Enterprise, and still clearly members and community will continue getting that support. That is the peculiarism of tourism more broadly and economic development, is that no bridges are burned ever. We keep that network alive. There will continue to be good contact with Capricorn Enterprise. We acknowledge Mary Carroll and all of the people over a number of years that have been supportive, certainly of lots of marketing campaigns, lots of organisations within the region. And we look forward to obviously having the opportunity of developing something might be a little bit different, that certainly aligns with some of our more, I suppose, omnipresent sort of needs of our visitor economy. But that won't be that we won't have lots of other engagements and arrangements and partnerships with lots of other people, because that is the nature of this business. So we just need to acknowledge our thanks to those people in doing this. So thank you, Peter, for your diligence as well as the LTO, I guess, and representing council. So we look forward to obviously a better outcome for us all around, and we'll certainly pass on our sentiments to those people as we go along. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor.
All right, councillors, the next agenda item is a record of proceedings, and I go back to General Manager John in terms of this being under communities, and I'll ask him to lead us through these last couple of Sorry, the last one, and then we'll let Kerry do the last hurrah for today. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, as you know, the Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee, known as CHRC, is a council committee established to support council service delivery in the areas of arts, culture and heritage. I'll now pass over to Suzanne Poulter, Manager Connected Communities, to speak to the record of proceedings from our last committee meeting. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Excuse me, I haven't adjusted. Thank you, General Manager McDougall. Through the Chair, this report presents the record of proceedings from the CHRC meeting held on the 12th of May 2023 at Council's Emerald office. Apologies, I wasn't actually at the meeting myself, but I can share the following from the minutes with you today. The first item is that the Emerald Arts Precinct works are almost complete. The second item is that the 30th anniversary of the annual Art Awards in Emerald occurs this year. Data was shared in the meeting showing artists who have entered over the 30 years, with those with over 20 years involvement to be acknowledged as part of the event. So celebration plans were discussed with some exciting activities on the schedule. And the third item was our Arts Around August program. Council events are being planned for those, including the Emerald's Arts Precinct Open Day, containing art group activities, promotion, artesian markets and musicians, Queensland Ballet workshops, polymer ear workshops, or I should say polymer earring, not ears. Could be a bit interesting. And then the Emerald Gallery 30th anniversary celebrations as well, of course. So I'll now pass over to councillors for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Chair, would you like to add anything to that?
Just on the 30-year anniversary.
Oh, sorry, hang on, just a moment, Charlie. Sorry, Councillor.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're sorry. Go. Sorry, Charlie. Thank you. Go.
Just on the 30-year anniversary, it's an inaugural one. It's certainly been well. Would you say? People have certainly added into that competition over the years. I wish to thank those people. They've certainly been appreciated, and I appreciate their contributions. The number of people that have submitted over a long period is phenomenal. I'll leave it at that. The only other thing is I'm trying to find it. Sorry, I've got it here. No, I haven't. The oral histories. They're doing a scope of works to get a contractor in to get that I wouldn't say cleaned up, but being able to be accessed by people. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Councillor Cypher. You'll have to turn off now, Charlie.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right, just payback. I've got three questions, but one was the oral history, so thank you for that. And Suzanne, thank you also for sending through how to find them. So I have been in there. So then there is about 7, I think, already up there, which was really nice. So if you've got a contractor coming in to do more, would that be the Bohinia oral histories that was done quite a number of years ago by Karen Newman? And I know they were put on the Bohinia Remember When, I think that's what I call it, Facebook page for their 50-year celebration. I'm hoping that those particular ones which council funded to have done and have access to may be the next lot that are being looked at to go on the council web, on that link that on the library page, hopefully. So just, I'm not asking you to commit to that, obviously, but I just wanted to highlight it, that they are council property. They were done by Karen Newman through, I believe, grant funding, and they should be here somewhere under council safekeeping. So that was that one. The other one was, and this is just probably a yes or no, I said that I would send through the acquittal report for Our Collection Matters project. Did I send that through to you? Yeah. Because
that feels like a yes or no question for you to tell me.
You do mention it here, and I thought, well, I must have sent it if you're talking about the recommendations in it. So
Through the chair, I will check the records and come back to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I can't. I know I meant to do it, and I'm just hoping I had done it.
I'll double check that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I might be getting, it's that greyness coming out. The other one is the RADF guidelines.
Yes.
Will they, I see that they're due to come to council on the 15th of July. Your committee is reviewing them at the moment. Will they be coming to council to have feedback into prior to being presented at council, or are we providing our feedback at the council meeting?
I can probably just jump in there through the chair. Suzanne mightn't have checked her emails yet from yesterday. What I would prefer is that if we can take that to a strategy and briefing session for a discussion prior to coming back to council meeting would be the preferred way, if that's that's certainly what council wanted yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to sit with Suzanne and
Through the chair, may I add to that,
of course,
General Manager?
Yep.
So in regards to the review of the RADF guidelines, that is a process we do annually regardless, and we understand this year we've got some additional feedback that we got at the council meeting held in Blackwater earlier that we've got to take on board to take back to the, I guess, to the panel in that regard. There is no actual requirement for council to approve those, and we've never done it that way before, but we will certainly review with the members on the panel and come back to council through the strategic and briefing forum and follow the process through that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all of mine.
Very good.
Thank you, Councillor Swiber. All right, councillors, the recommendation there is that receive the record of proceedings of the Central Highlands Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee. Someone happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Brimblecombe, second Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Thank you, carried. Thank you, Suzanne. Councillors, we skip across to General Manager Carey in relation to the record of proceedings for the community consultation and comment on the 31st of May. Carey, if you could lead us off, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, Central Highlands Regional Council regards community engagement activities as a cornerstone of good governance and critical to effective planning and delivery of infrastructure and services that meet the needs and expectations of the community. Community consultation meetings are held in various communities throughout the Central Highlands local government area each year and provide opportunity for council and the community to meet and discuss key issues, plans and projects. The Comet Community Consultation Forum was held on the 31st of May this year, and I now hand over to the Acting Manager of Customer Service, Rachel McFarlane, to take council through this report.
Thank you, General Manager Nudston. Through the Chair, good morning, good afternoon, councillors. As General Manager Nudston has indicated, this afternoon's report presents to you the record of proceedings for the Comet Community Consultation that was held at the Comet School of Arts Hall on the 31st of May this year. There were 8 CRMs logged into our system. Requests included facility maintenance, additional road signage and road maintenance, among other things. I'll now pass over to councillors for any questions or comments on the minutes.
So just before we kick off, can I be Councillor Roll for a moment and just say, in the apologies, Jenny Lucas is LUCAS and Rosemary McLeod is an MCCLEOD. So if you could just, Rachel, if you could just correct those, please.
Absolutely.
That'd be great in those minutes. All right, councillors, over to you. I can actually continue. I think there's, out of those councillors, if there was some, I know this is record of proceedings, there is still concern about the turn off to the which road is that? The Bolivale Road. And look, it's been an enduring thing, and I know officers have diligently done counts and provided lots of things there, but it still continues to be, I guess, probably the major concern, and I guess it's more indicative of, you know, what potentiality there is of any turnout off of Capricorn Highway for these sorts of things. So I don't know whether there's a reflection there, Jason, that you could make.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council staff have continued to raise the concerns with Transport and Main Roads through both written correspondence and at our Transport Advisory Group meetings. To date, there has not been any funding committed from Transport and Main Roads, but we will continue to advocate on behalf, including supplying recent increases in traffic volumes that we're aware of on that road over the last 12 months.
Yeah, thank you. And I just think that, you know, I guess those people that attended just wanted to know where that was up to, and they have been in Tyrone. I know Tyrone Meredith has been certainly very responsive to their concerns, but I guess at some point, you know, there will be sufficient traffic, I guess, when Yamala's a bit busier, but they didn't want to get to that situation where there's big trucks and more of them, you know, interfacing with school buses and things like that. So, yeah. Anyhow, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Any other questions, councillors? And thank you very much, councillors, for being there. That was very well attended and it was greatly appreciated. So, councillors, that recommendation is there, and the CRMs that were recorded from comment. It would be disappointing if we didn't get some, but certainly they know the drill and they certainly made sure that they had those reported. Thank you for bringing the report, Rachel. So the recommendation is there that we receive those. Someone happy to move them? Moved by Councillor Cruz, seconded by Councillor Moriarty. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Thank you. All right, councillors, I think that's all our business. We get to general business, councillors. I have got an item here, and I need to refer council. This is an unusual request that I guess I don't generally bring here, but this is wanting to table a procedural motion, obviously, or consider a procedural motion under clause 32G and clause 39 of the General Council meeting standing orders to table a document, and that's been circulated to you, and that refers to correspondence received from Anne Baker, Mayor of the Isaacs Regional Council, who spoke to us in a couple of meetings earlier this week in relation to a matter here of some impacts in her community and seeking support. So, yeah, so that procedural motion there is on the screen. So there's that a request from Mayor Anne Baker of Isaac Regional Council received on the 27th of June and requesting council report for circulating on social media on social impact of resource and energy projects to be considered by council. So, councillors, that doesn't require a seconder. So what I'm actually asking to table there is not the pro forma letter, it's attached to this correspondence, but just this correspondence from Mayor Anne, and seeking, obviously, and that's, I guess, the hard copy that you've all seen is in your hot little hands. So it's on the screen as well for you to read. So in terms of that document, yes, sorry, the procedural motion, is everyone happy with that? I've moved it. Those in favour, you don't need a seconder. So I just need, I guess, a vote from council. Are you happy to receive that procedural motion? Just pass the procedural motion. So to table the letter. So okay, I'll speak to that letter. Councillors, in terms of the information provided to us from Anne, this is in relation to the Strong and Sustainable Resources Communities Act more broadly, but it's actually specifically around an application that related to the township of Glendon and processes that Isaacs Regional Council have been undertaking over a period of time in relation to a 440 workforce mine camp at a Q coal mine 20 kilometres from the township of Glendon. They have, over a period of time, exercised, I suppose, due process in respect of the applicant and their council, and through the courts have had determinations in their favour refusing the proposal as put by that particular applicant. I suppose without, and limiting it to what Anne has provided in the letter here, the concern, I believe, and why we should be supporting Isaacs in this respect is around the process without the detail, in that there would be an expectation, rightly or otherwise, that in terms of development applications, certainly around mining leases, that is something that is omnipresent in our region. And in this case, it having gone to, I suppose you'd say, the umpire for determination, that there was an expectation that perhaps that would be the final decision. What has eventuated is, in fact, a change to that by the Minister for Resources. So I guess the concern, and she raised this with a number of councils, Resource Council and others at a couple of meetings this week, is very much a concern about that process, and seeking certainly our support to write to the Premier to, I suppose, articulate support for them and our concerns for that. So I am happy certainly to support them without knowing all the detail of the application. My focus is purely on the process here and the fact that this would be causing us some concern insofar as we only ever want these processes to be fair, that an applicant should have the opportunity, and council should also have, I suppose, some chance of regulating that and planning through the recourse through Planning and Environment Court. In the event where those things seem to have been circumvented for some way, in some way, shape or form, would concern me because, as you know, the business of business is very self-interested, and you will get what you need to get as best you can. If anyone sees the opportunity and the precedent created by this, it might have repercussions on a number of locations where resource companies are either seeking to have accommodation set up on leases or in communities that somehow are exempt from the Stronger and Sustainable Resources Community Act and subsequent legislation. So I guess the thing is here is we are seeking to have the Premier remedy this, and it might be in terms of the concurrent discussion with frameworks for regions, that it might be argued that if, whilst we're looking for this transition and regional frameworks, we should be making sure that the frameworks we have are serving us well, and if they're being circumvented, well, if nothing else, a good explanation is needed, and certainly we need that confidence, and I think I would like to support by writing. We don't have to follow the pro forma letter that's been provided to us. I think it would be more purposeful perhaps for us to articulate the perceived or otherwise impacts on our region and articulate them well. So I would draft that with the CEO to make sure that we still show the right amount of support for Marion Baker's concerns in Isaac, but making sure that perhaps the impacts on our region are also addressed. So, yeah, Councillor Rolfe.
Well, if we're not going, and I'm pleased to hear you say that we're not going to go with this letter per se. So the second last line in per se, how do you spell per se? Also, I do believe that there's some parts of the paragraphs that are not quite right. So if we're not going to use this, it doesn't matter.
No, that's right.
That's right.
The pro forma letter is there for your information, but it's not tabled for this conversation. It was just the fact that we're seeking that support.
Yeah, thanks.
Is that, and I'm, sorry, I hope I can speak. I'm with Councillor Rolfe that in principle, I support a letter objecting to the process that's occurred or wanting a process to occur. But yeah, the letter I'm not satisfied with. If we move forward with this, will councillors get to see the letter before it goes to the Premier?
We could circulate it before it's sent to you. Yep, for sure.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think it's an opportunity to be working with colleague councils. We have communities in our region, not that, that councils acted to prevent any developments, but we certainly have communities in our region, small communities like Glendon, that are exposed to having more single persons camps as well, but it's also how do we balance the livability for people living in our communities in those single persons quarters with the livability of the residents in communities as well. For me, that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. All right, councillors, that motion then would be that the Mayor write to the Queensland Premier, the Honourable Anastasia Palaszczuk MP, to the effect generally supporting Isaac Regional Council's advocacy regarding the implications for local communities dealing with new develops in mining, critical minerals and renewables energy projects. So I'm happy to move that. If someone would like to second it, please. Second, Councillor Burns. All in favour? Against? Thank you, councillors. Carried. Well, that was a good exercise in a procedural motion, but thank you, and I acknowledge Councillor Marion Baker and Deputy Mayor Kelly Beebe for obviously leading the communities in this particular instance. It's been quite distressing for them. They've been through a long process at considerable expense. Councillors, any more general business? All right then. Under the strict instructions of Councillor Brimblecombe then, at 1:16 p.m. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, executive leadership team. Thank you, CEO. And we will break. Thank you, everyone.